Welcome to Abnormal, the podcast for normal people who want to do abnormal things. My guest today is an ultramarathon runner, a full-time firefighter, and somehow, for the last 281 weeks in a row, he's run over 100 miles per week without missing a beat. That's nearly 6 years of no excuses, no shortcuts, just insane consistency on top of already demanding life of service. In this episode, we dive into the mindset behind the miles, the discipline behind the streak, and what drives someone to keep going when most people would quit. Andrew Glaze, welcome to Abnormal.
Thank you. Wow, that's quite the intro.
Well, it's a story I've been following for a long time, and I think we should start where most people's questions begin, the 281-week streak. Now, the thing that blows my mind is the consistency, because I'll use myself as a pathetic example. I'm coming off a week of food poisoning, and if I had a streak that I needed to keep up, I would have lost it this week. So how have you managed to avoid those weeks of injury, illness, or if you've hit them, how have you managed to still keep that streak alive?
I mean, everything I do is trying to avoid illness and injury, like as far as like recovery and, living healthy and whatnot. But, inevitably it happens in a 6-year period. So there's no way to totally avoid it. Especially I'm a paramedic as well. So, I'm exposed to a lot of sick people, and I was exposed to a lot of sick people during COVID because we were, 911's called when somebody's sick with COVID. So, just in general, it's a dangerous job when it comes to getting sick. But I think for me, like the times when I'm like sick or I like have a slight little injury and it's harder to accomplish those weeks, those are the weeks that I like the most, because they're the hardest to accomplish. If everything goes like to plan, then I'm just kind of like, okay, another week. But if something's like a huge obstacles in the way, then for me, that's where I like really dial in and focus, and I enjoy it more. So if I had like, food poisoning and say I was like had diarrhea and vomiting, which is, a side effect of food poisoning, I think that it would just make running really hard, and I'd probably shit myself and probably, puke, and it would just be part of, the experience of like getting that 100 miles. And I would just think back of like, oh, remember that time when I couldn't stop shitting myself, and I had to get the 100 miles anyways, and it would be like a funny memory.
Okay, already I'm learning that some people are just built different. Some people are just built different.
I mean, I would try to like flip it in my mind, as like, yeah, it's a terrible situation, but at the same time, you still got to get it done. So, and that's what I would do, is I just figure out how to get it done.
Have you had any of those big obstacles recently?
In February, I had a really bad fall in an ultra, and I had a full thickness bruise in my quad. So like pretty much my entire quad was black. And, yeah, I almost did not get that week. That was a hard week. I got a lot of physical therapy throughout the week, and then did every, trick I knew to heal it. But what I had to do to get it is I ended up figuring out that if I ran downhill, that it wasn't as painful. So I would have my wife drop me off like way up on a hill, and I would run downhill for like, 15 miles, so I could get the mileage, and it wouldn't, I mean, it still hurt, but it didn't hurt as bad. And so that was the hack on how I got the miles. And like, I kind of felt like I was cheating, but at the same time, I'm like, people live places that are totally flat. I live in a really hilly, mountainous area. So there's a lot of uphill when I run. So I felt like I was cheating, but I still got the miles.
That's insane. That's insane. And so talk us through then how it all started. I know you've spoken a lot about it before in other articles and stuff, but talk us through, we're nearly 6 years in now. So how did this kind of streak come about?
So, I mean, I really enjoy running ultramarathons, and I've done it for a while, like over a decade. And I've done a lot of them. and I was signed up for a bunch of them, and then COVID happened and everything got canceled. And so and then at the same time, like I mentioned earlier, like, so I'm a firefighter paramedic, front lines, super stressful during COVID. Everyone's dying, everyone's calling 911. We're having to put all these gowns on and do all this stuff like we're going into like a biohazard situation. Nobody knows what's going on. Why are people dying? And I needed a way to decompress, but all my races were canceled, which is normally how I like decompress. So I was just basically looking for a solution that I could like do to help me deal with like the high amount of stress that was going on like during COVID. And so, I ran like 100 miles and I was like, oh, I'll do it again. And then it was like 105 and then it was like, 140 and then it just, kind of just snowballed from there. Then they started doing those like virtual races where it was like, oh, log your miles through Strava and you're competing with other people. And I was like, well, I can run really high mileage. So, we'll see what happens. And so then I got really into running really, really high mileage. I think for 18 weeks, I ran over 200 miles.
Oh my
I was
God.
like number one on Strava for a couple months in a row. I
Number
was running
one
over,
worldwide.
yeah, running over 1,000 miles
Wow.
a month, um, which was insane. Like I was running 40 something miles a day. Just so I would run like 36 miles in the morning and then like in the night with like a 10 or 15 mile run. But it was COVID. There was like literally nothing else going on in the world, right? I mean, everyone else was like watching TikToks and, watching TV because that was all there was to do. And all I was doing was running. So, or working. Um, and that, I mean, I never thought it would go, wherever we're at over 5.5 years. Like, I just figured I'd get injured or sick and something would happen. And I still think, something will happen. Eventually something will happen and it won't work out. And that's okay. Like, that's life. I'll still race and still run a bunch and do everything, but eventually the streak it has to end,
It has to,
but
surely. We're in quite
yeah,
deep
I'm
now,
in.
though. So obviously, the deeper you get in, the more not jeopardy there is on it because it's only you versus yourself. But there's
Yeah.
a there's
I
a
mean,
lot of people
break,
riding on this.
you break it. Life is just like breaking it up into small goals, and it's the nice thing about 100 mile week is there's no pressure to run every day, and there's no pressure if you have a bad day, or even if you have 2 bad days, because you can always make up the miles. And so you just take it one day at a time. And if you have a bad day, you just give yourself grace and say, well, tomorrow I'll just have to run a couple extra miles. Like I ran 100 miles this last weekend at a race. And so, like Monday and Tuesday, I only ran like 10 miles each day. And I just said to myself, hey, that's okay. Like you're kind of a little broken from running this 100 mile race. So you can't go out and get high mileage. And that's just the way it goes. So I'll have to make it up some other time throughout this week, which I will. But the nice thing about having 7 days to do it is like I have 7 days to do it. So the pressure is less. I know to
Mm.
most people, they're still saying like, well, that's still 100 miles. Like you might have to run 40 miles in a day. And if I do, I do. I mean, I can run 40 miles in a day. So if it comes, I can run 100 miles in a day. So if it comes down to it, and I took 6 days off, um, I could still get it done. When I injured my leg in February, I think I took 3 days off, and then I still had to get the 100 miles in the last 4 days, and I did, and it was terrible, but I got it done. So
Talk us through then this week that you're currently going through because from your Instagram you said you ran you did a 100-mile race on the weekend and it looks like it's been a pretty tough couple of days up to this point. We're recording on a Thursday for me, but Wednesday for you.
right.
Um, and so talk us through that kind of recovery protocol from that 100-mile race and how that's been the first few days.
Yeah, so normally what I do is after I finish an ultra 100 mile race, I I wait about 10 hours and then I'll go out and run like 3 to 5 miles just to sort of get the legs like moving, get a little active recovery. I don't want my body to like lock up. Um, and I find that's like pretty important to do is to like keep moving and not like there's like a whole philosophy of like, oh, after you do a big effort to like give yourself a big rest afterwards. And I'm just not really a big fan of that philosophy. I'm not a coach. This is what I do. So yeah, I'll run like 5 miles, which I kind of did. It was like a weird thing where the race ended. I don't know. I finished in the afternoon and then I had to drive like 3 hours and then I went straight to bed because I had been up for like 40 something hours. And then I woke up really early and then had to get on a plane and fly all the way home. And then I had to drive through LA traffic. So by the time I ran, it had been longer than 10 hours, which kind of, I think, messed me up a little bit, plus with all the travel. But I did get 5 miles. My feet are they're really swollen. It was a high elevation race where I was, I think, above like 7,000 feet most of the race. I'm not sure what
Jeez.
that is in meters. What is that, like 2,000 something meters?
Yeah, I was going to say
And
anywhere between 2 and 3,000.
yeah,
Put me
and
on the
then it
spot
went
here.
up to like 10 to 11,000 feet. So that's like 3,000 something meter, maybe 3,500 meters. It went up like 4 or 5 times above that. So it was a high elevation race, which just, causes some edema and some issues that I'm used to, but maybe it stuck around a little longer than normal. I'm an old man. I will just say that. Like, I'm not like a spring chicken or like a
How old
young
are you,
young
Andrew?
kid. I'm 47. So, I'm I'm out there running with all these like 20-year olds and 30-year olds, and like I said, I've been in the game for a long time, but as you get older, things don't bounce back quite as quickly. So, yeah, so my feet were really swollen. I had to deal with that, and my protocol is basically like I give myself a ton of sleep. Um, which is, important in recovery. I hydrate like crazy. I eat really, really high calorie after the races to just like give my body a lot of fuel to like rebuild all the muscle and bones and whatnot. And then I take a lot of supplements, which I do already, but like, the supplements continue. Um, I do cold plunge. I do sauna work. I do red light therapy. I get massage. I think that's those are the main things that I do, and I do them multiple times throughout the day if I'm off work and I can. So I've been off work the last couple of days, so I've been doing, multiple sessions of sauna, multiple sessions of cold therapy, and then red lights and all that stuff, and it's been working. So I mean, today I had a good run. I felt good. So when you consider running 100 miles in the mountains, I think it took me like 32 hours. Um, and then to only be messed up for like 3 days, it's okay. That's not a bad bounce back.
A lot of people will take that. Most
Yeah,
people would take
yeah,
that.
I think so. Yeah.
Has that been that recovery protocol? Have you always kind of done that? If we're talking about like the 281 weeks, or is this something that you've learned over time? What works best for you, and has your bounce back ability improved over time, or stayed the same?
No, I mean, it's definitely been built over the last couple years. And I add things to it like all the time. Like I think I've been doing cold plunge for maybe 3 years and red light therapy for maybe 2 years. Sauna is probably 3 years as well. So I didn't do a lot of that stuff before. Um, and I'm always adding and subtracting supplements to see like, oh, does this work? Does this not work? Things like that. I would say the only thing that's been super consistent over the last decade or so is the active recovery, which is, running after like, staying active, staying moving,
Right.
even when you're super sore. I just go slower, like after a 100-mile race, I'll start running. I'll be doing like a 14-minute mile. Like my first
Mm.
mile is like I literally probably could walk faster than I could run. And then the next mile, I'm like a 13-minute mile. And then the next one, I'm a 12. And then the next one, I'm a 10. And it's just like, it's my body. It's like slowly warming up, but I'm getting all the blood flowing. With all the blood flowing, it's moving the lactic acid and all that sort of stuff. It just keeps me loose. I find if I don't do that, then I tighten up and everything gets really sore and it just becomes a big sort of train wreck. But
Has it
all the
always
other little
been?
things, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to ask on the running for the recovery. Has it always been running, or have you ever given like cycling a go to have less impact on the joints for recovery, or has it always been running for you?
I mean, I have done like lots of triathlons and stuff throughout my time, but when it comes to like ultra running, it's just running. Yeah, I'm not a big like believer in the fact that running is bad on the joints. Um, I think the body is meant to like move and joints are meant to move. Um, and if you run with a proper gait and with a proper like techniques and you have good shoes and everything, then your joints really shouldn't be impacted. Um, Obviously, that lots of things can affect that. Like if I'm a new runner, right, and I'm just starting running, what gets stronger first, your muscles or your tendons? Your muscles, right? So like a lot of times people will start running and they'll feel strong and they'll run and their muscles will easily adapt to the running, but all their tendons, because tendons don't get as much blood, they adapt a lot slower, right? So what happens is like your muscles feel strong and your tendons, which would be like your joints or your knees and all the things that hold your bones together and your muscles together, those those are going to like be sore. And so people are like, oh, I got sore knees or I got sore
Yeah.
ankles. It just takes longer for those to adapt to running. And that's why newer runners kind of complain about those sort of ailments. But with someone like me that's been running for 20 something years, I don't have those issues. Um, I don't hate cycling or anything like that. I'm not against it. I'm not against swimming. It's just I got hit by a car on a bike, and so I have a little bit of PTSD with cycling,
Jeez.
so I don't do it anymore. Um, but when I did cycle, I loved it, and it was like I could totally see it. I know a lot of my friends cycle as sort of like a cross training thing, and I think it can be super beneficial. I just don't do it. I just run.
Yeah, and you're bloody good at it. So
Well,
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
yeah, I mean, it's because it's sort of what everyone tells you got to do certain things, and maybe you do, but also you have to find what works for you. Um, I was on a like podcast recently with a coach, and we were talking about like stretching, and I was explaining to her that I don't do any stretching, and she was kind of like blown away by that. But then she also said that her instructor had told her that some people just don't need to stretch. And if you do stretch them, then they end up getting like basically injured. And I'm like kind of in that boat. So where a lot of people do need stretching and it's very beneficial, like I've never stretched. And when I do stretch, I get injured. So I just don't do it. And it works for me. So again, something that works for me, but might not work for everybody else. And that's why I don't give people advice on like how to work out. It's just it's just like this is what Andy Glaze does, and it's right for Andy Glaze, but it's probably not right for you.
Yeah, in the nicest possible way, you sound like a coach's worst nightmare.
Oh yeah, they hate me. They yeah. I know they probably all
You can
surround
imagine
and
the clients like, oh yeah, but I follow this guy called Andrew and he does this, They're like, don't fucking follow Andrew.
yeah, I believe. Well, and I say it a lot though. Don't do what I do. I try to like tell people that, but it falls on deaf ears, I think. But I mean, I think there's a lot of athletes out there that do crazy things, and you're like, you really should not do what they do, but it works for them,
Yeah,
you
and
know?
that's the beauty of it, right? When you've been in the game for over 20 years, as you said, you do find what works and you find those little tricks that work for yourself, and you know your body and mind better than anyone. So the young
Right.
guys and girls watching are probably still need a long way to go through that journey, myself included. Um,
Yeah. And
Although
rest
what
is
I will
good and
say,
all those things. Like, you should give your body
yeah,
rest. And, like, just because I don't do it, like, doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. Just,
is there any
don't try to
like
be me. It's okay, Like, it's good.
just be yourself?
Yeah.
Is there any like excuse that you hear consistently that really pisses you off that people make?
I mean, I think, when people say they don't have enough time, I think that bothers me the most because I think everybody always has 30 minutes in a day. And even if you just did 30 minutes of whatever, um, if you would improve so much over a year. Um, just 30 minutes of whatever, 30 minutes of push-ups, 30 minutes of walking, 30 minutes of pull-ups, whatever. If you just took 30 minutes a day and put it into that, um, over a year, that's, a ridiculous amount of time, and you would see huge gains. Um, and I know a lot of people, have kids and jobs and all these busy lifestyles, but I also know that a lot of people like sit on their phones and look at TikTok and watch TV and and those are all like good things. Like watching TV can be a great de-stressor, but so can, walking 3 miles. You just have to kind of pick what you want. But yeah, as someone who I think, yeah, I'm very consistent and that clearly one of my superpowers, but I think also time management is one of my superpowers because I have 3 kids, a wife, um, a very demanding job, and I run a huge social media platform and still, run over 100 miles a week, race, 10 times a year, travel, do all this stuff, and somehow manage to do it all. So when people tell me they don't have enough time, it does irk me a little bit.
Yeah, it's falling on deaf ears. You're probably the worst person to talk to about not having enough time as an excuse, which was going to
Well,
be my next
like
question, but you've answered it well.
when they ask me that stuff, it's like, you don't want to be me. Like, I don't watch TV. I haven't watched TV in like 10 years. People come up to me like, "Oh, have you seen Love Island?" I'm like, "I don't even know what that means." Like I don't really I put a lot of social media out, but I don't like consume a lot of social media. So like I don't really know what's going on in the world. I don't care, I don't have enough time to like dedicate energy into all that. And I know that that's important to people and they get really into it and all that, but like I don't. So it's again, it's one of those things like you have to sacrifice some things to get the results you want. And for me, I've sacrificed maybe cultural significance or something like that. I'm not entirely sure what, but yeah. If you want to talk to me about Love Island or whatever else is going on, I have no idea.
Well, I'll delete all my questions about Love Island then. So I've obviously done followed you for a while, Andrew, and like done a fair bit of reading and stuff. Um, Not only is the running I find very interesting, but obviously your career and your demanding job, which you've mentioned a few times. Um, you've said before that running saved your life. Can you tell us what was going on in your world before this all started?
Yeah, I mean, so I started running when I was in my early 20s, and um, I was just in a period of my life where I was not exercising at all. I was not active, and I was in my early 20s. And I think when you're in your early 20s, that's kind of when you're in like your prime, and your body like wants to move, and your body wants to do stuff. And instead of, it's I obviously have a fire inside of me, but instead of like dealing with that fire inside of me, I just like extinguished it with drugs and alcohol because it was like easier to do. So, I was just basically fucked up all the time and um, kept myself sedated enough so that I didn't feel, you know, any sort of issues with not moving my body. Um, and it got to a point where I started having like crippling panic attacks and like anxiety and depression and all these things, which I think are a direct result of, not moving, not exercising. And I had a friend who basically said, "Hey, man, well, it sounds like you need to like work out." Um, and I went to a gym and I got a gym membership and I got a personal trainer and I started like lifting weights and doing the elliptical trainer and like getting back into shape, and everything went away. All the anxiety, all the depression, all the all the issues I was having, and I was able to just do a very hard pivot, um, and get my life back in order from that moment on. I mean, obviously there's still, it wasn't like I got sober right that second and like stopped doing everything, but it at least pushed me into a direction where I eventually did stop doing everything, and um, was able to just focus mostly on running and my career and things like that. So, had that not happened, I don't know what would have happened, but I was extremely unhappy, extremely depressed, extremely anxious, always feeling like I was going to have a heart attack, or like, you know, I was dying. And this is before, you knew what that stuff was, because there wasn't really the internet. You couldn't like go on ChatGPT or WebMD or whatever and be like, yeah, I'm having chest pain and I'm shortness of breath, and I'm not really sure why. I'm only 22 years old. But luckily I had a friend that understood the value of exercise and pushed me in that direction, and he was correct. So,
Do you ever think what would have happened if you didn't have that friend at that point in your life?
yeah, I mean, I do think about it because I was super depressed and not in a good headspace. So I'm sure bad things could have happened easily, if I had just continued down that path. Depression is quite crippling and suffocating, um, especially when you're in your 20s and you're trying to start your life and do all these things. So, um, but and I think now I influence a lot of younger men and younger women, and um, I just hope that sometimes I'm that friend telling people like, hey, start moving, start working out. There's hope, and it's in movement. It can be your medicine, and it can make you feel better. And I mean, and I know that I have, because I get thousands of DMs from people who tell me how watching me on social media has gotten them moving, and got them into a better spot, either losing weight or just, getting more active, or running their first marathon, or running their first 5K, or whatever it is. Um, and so it's nice to give back. It's nice to be like, somebody did it to me, and now I can do it to, thousands of people,
That's
millions of
amazing.
people, actually.
Have you had any stories that have kind of like stood out for you? Any people that have reached out to you to share their stories that have stuck with you?
I mean, honestly, I screenshot like almost every DM I get where it involves it, and I have thousands and thousands of messages of people that have
Wow.
either lost weight, or changed their entire life, or got sober, or I, so many in my mind that I wouldn't even be able to like categorize it. I probably get at least five a day, and I can't even get through all my DMs. So I probably get more than that, but um, I'm still just one person running this like massive social media platform, and
That's amazing.
I still have all these other responsibilities. So it's very hard to like even get through them all, but um, it's it's a good feeling when I get them. It's a good feeling when I read them, because that's my goal, is just to make a difference and to help people, to spread positivity, because this world world is not always in the best place, when it comes to all that sort of stuff, especially the internet, man. What a negative place a lot of
Yeah.
times. So,
When I hear
uh,
that, it gives me a really happy feeling that you're helping so many people and that you got helped and found exercise and that was your kind of outlet. But it also gives me a bit of fear, with how many people, young people, there would be who are probably in that headspace right now, that are maybe one gym membership away from getting out of it, and maybe don't have that friend, or don't follow you on socials, or don't have that positive influence in their life. And because I'm a big believer, I share that standpoint as well, Andy. Like, yes, depression, anxiety is a very, very serious thing. But I do think that just movement and exercise would help a lot of people, before any other treatments as well. so it kind of scares me to think how many people would be stuck in one of those ruts and one of those holes. And as I said, I'll one run away, one good friend telling them to go down to the gym together from getting out of that hole, but maybe never will have that experience.
Yeah, and I mean that's the cool thing about social media is like I have huge impact as far as my reach goes. I mean last year I did my numbers and I had 400 million views across all my
Whoa.
platforms. And so, when you're talking about reaching people, and then you look, I have a lot of young kids that follow me, a lot of like cross country kids and um, like 14, 15, 16-year olds, because they're all on TikTok. And I have a lot of very viral videos on TikTok. So just, I think that, yes, there's always going to be people that don't know about this, but I think as a society, there is a large online presence of people that are making exercise like an important topic. As far as mental health goes, we did not have this when I was when I was that age. We didn't know about this. So, and if we did know about it, maybe it was in a book in the library, and that was the only place you could find it. And if you didn't know to look for it, it wasn't there. So, at least I have hope that because videos go viral and so many people see them, that somebody you'll get exposed to it somehow. I mean, I that's my hope at least. That like because the thing is you might be like really overweight, and you might be really out of shape, and you might be really depressed, and that's a hard message to be like, well, just go run. Well, if I'm 400 pounds, I'm not going to be able to go run. But and that's why it's just important to focus on like movement. You might be able to walk, or you might be able to do something like that, or go, you might be able to swim, you might be able to walk in a pool. There's as long as you're moving and you're starting, and like I said, even if you only do 30 minutes a day, what is that, like 131 hours a year? I mean, that's a lot of hours if you add it all up in a year. It will do something to you. It will change you somehow. Um, all these little micro goals. And honestly, I think we all know if we start with 30 minutes a day, what is that going to turn into? It's going to turn into an
Yeah.
hour, and then maybe an hour and a half, and eventually it'll become something greater than 30 minutes. Um,
100 miles a week.
well, I'm just saying, I mean, exercise it can be a little addictive, right? When it starts working well and you start feeling good, you're like, well, I want to feel good better. I want to feel more, so.
For you, Andy, I'm a big admirer almost because you do speak very openly about anxiety and mental health, and you've also spoken openly about your own PTSD from working at your very intense job. Um, can you share with us a bit more about that and how, like, what exactly you go through day to day at work, and how you, I don't want to say deal with that now, but how you manage that, those emotions day to day, because obviously you've come a long way since that 20-year-old who didn't go to the gym and was in a dark hole. But sometimes these challenges don't escape us; they just come in different ways. So can you share with us a bit more how you work through them at this stage in your life?
Yeah. I mean, for me, so PTSD affects everybody very differently. Um, and I look at it kind of as like a stack of dominoes. Like in the beginning of your career, you have like one or two dominoes, and you're like, all right, it might be something very traumatic, but not enough to really like matter. And then as the stack gets higher and higher, it becomes more significant. And, maybe after 10 or 15 years in a career of seeing, terrible things on a daily basis, it starts to kind of get to you. Um, and it's not always like, I wouldn't say that I feel it on like a daily basis, but there will be like certain things that will trigger it. And it will just make me feel kind of ill for a couple days. I won't be able to sleep. I'll get insomnia. I won't really want to eat. Just like I'll feel like off, like everything will be off. Um, and it's all in my head. My head is just like it, and I know it's just like a mental thing, but there's no way to like break through it. And again, it's kind of like a depression slash anxiety feeling, but it's just really unsettling, suffocating almost. And so for me, I've found that ultra running really helps me because it brings my brain into a place where it kind of has to like reset, and where I have to kind of go into like a lizard brain survival mode. And when your brain goes into that, it kind of like shuts off all the external noise that's going on because you're just trying to stay alive. You're like, okay, I have to eat, I have to drink, I have to get to the next aid station. And you really just start focusing on those like three things. And so all the external noise, all the, thoughts about this or that, or remembering horrible things, like it just disappears. And it brings a silence to my mind that just feels really, really good. Um, and I've also found like cold plunge can do that too in like a very short moment, because when you get into a cold plunge, your body just immediately starts going into shock, right? And I don't know if you've done a cold plunge before, but you're in this freezing cold water and you're like, all you want to do is get out of it. And you have to focus on your breathing, and your body's going through all these weird things because it feels like it's freezing to death. And you like stop thinking about all the other things going on in your brain. You're just like because all of a sudden your body thinks it's dying. And so that can be a really good, like just little temporary reset. But for me, the ultra running is that's the real off button for me. So, um, but yeah, because so many police and fire and military and, we all do see like really horrible things, and a lot of us are affected by it. I talk about it really openly just because I hope, um, my message gets to somebody who doesn't feel so open about talking about it. I think, as a leader, you want to lead from the front, and you want to show people that maybe don't have as much experience as you do that like, hey, I'm affected too. Like I know you see me as like I'm a chief, like, oh, you see me as the chief and I'm in charge of all these people, but like, I'm a human too. I'm affected by these things too. I'm affected by the same things that you're affected by. And, this is what I have come up with to help me, deal with it. Um, and I hope that it inspires more people to talk about it and more people to be open about it, because when you're quiet about it and you don't talk about it, that's when it leads to things like suicide and, drinking and drugs and other activities that you use to cloak it, or to, try to get rid of it through chemicals.
Are there any non-exercise related tools that you use to help yourself in times like that?
I've started beekeeping. Um, I
There you
I
go.
read some like articles about how beekeeping could be good for PTSD, and I'm one of those people that like I will literally try everything, just I like to experiment on myself, and I'm like, okay, I'm down, let's do it. So yeah, I've started beekeeping, and I do find it's very like soothing to go out there and work with the bees, because you have to be like really calm. Bees sense your energy, and so you need to like, give them like some calming energy, and you have to be very gentle with them. And, you don't want to hurt any of them, but you have to like move all these things and do all these things with them. And so, yeah, I would say I've started beekeeping, which is kind of funny, but, yeah, that's a
I love that.
non-exercise related thing that I do for a little bit of PTSD, kind of a meditation type thing.
I love that you're willing to try it.
Yeah, I mean, you got to experiment on yourself. I do this in everything I do. Is like I try these different protocols. Like, hey, does this work? And if it does, then I keep it. And if it doesn't, I throw it out.
What's
Yeah.
been one of the ones that has worked the best that you've tested on yourself?
Um. I mean, I can't. I love cold plunge. I think cold plunge and sauna, the contrast therapy is probably one of my favorite things to do. I mean, I hate it when it's a love hate relationship, but as far as how good it makes me
Mm.
feel, um, I think it's one of the top things. And I've turned so many people onto cold plunging, especially in my department and other fire departments, and everybody just raves about it. It just makes you feel so good. Um, and it's great for recovery too. It's all those things too. But mentally, it's a really amazing feeling.
I saw that crazy video on Instagram when you were cold plunging, and then the I don't know what you call it, the warning light or siren light, or
Oh
you got a
yeah, yeah,
call
yeah. We got a
in the
call.
fire
Yeah,
station,
yeah.
and you had to jump out and get ready. So what happens in those situations then? You were, so for anyone listening, you were Andy
Yeah, I
was
mean, so
cold
like,
plunging in the
I,
station.
I'm at the fire station for like at least 48 hours at a time. And so, we have to live our lives. We shower and we shit and we eat and all the things that you do. We sleep, all the things you do in a normal life. But in between everything, like if anybody calls 911, we have to like, run to the truck, get on it and, respond. So sometimes we're in the shower and we're all soaped up. Sometimes we're mid shit, and we have to break it off and like, take a shower afterwards. All the most horrible things. You're halfway cooking your food and you get a call and it ruins the whole dinner. I mean, it doesn't matter. It happens, and especially over a career. So, yeah, we have a cold plunge at my station that the union bought, um, and that the guys can do. And yeah, occasionally you'll be in that cold plunge, and someone will call 911. You got to jump out and, I tear off all the wet clothes, and I have dry clothes sitting right off to the side, and I put it all on really quick and get on the engine, and we go to the call. And I think on that one, I can just remember just sitting there shivering, just like I was so cold, like, during the whole call. So it was a medical aid. So it wasn't a fire, but like, yeah, it was a cold night, and then I was already cold. So, but it happens to all of us. We all get caught in the shower or wherever. We're all used to it, but when the public sees something like that, they're like, "Oh my God." They think it's so shocking.
But it's great content. It is it's stuff like that you look at and you're like, fuck, this is real life, And
Yeah.
you, because it's just like someone filming a TikTok and you know, oh shit, they're getting a call that a fire's come in or a medical aid or something like that. It's
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Well, that's what happens sometimes.
the other ones that I like of yours, Andy, are when you show your feet after your races. I say I like them, right? I like them tongue in cheek. That's fucking brutal, man. Fucking
Yeah, my feet
brutal.
are like real famous. I have real famous, or we'll say infamous feet.
Infamous, I
They're
think is
they're
better.
they're gnarly. I mean, have you ever looked at like a ballerina's feet? I mean, ballerinas' feet are nasty, and or like
Gotta be
LeBron
so strong,
James's
right?
feet. Like,
Yeah, yeah, LeBron's are
Google.
horrid.
Yeah, they're horrible. I mean, if you put hard work into your feet, guess what's going to happen? They're going to be ugly. So I don't think people understand what 100 miles or 250 miles or 300 miles, like what that really means when it comes to what your feet are going to go through. I honestly think my feet look pretty good for because I take really, really good care of them during the race because you want to, right? Because if you let your feet go, then you're going to be in an enormous amount of pain. So, but regardless, when you run 100 miles a week and you do all these crazy runs, they're going to be ugly. My toenails are all cracked in half and black and always in the process of falling off. So but luckily my wife doesn't have a foot fetish, and neither do I. So it all works out.
Yeah, I think as I said at the start, some people are just built different, and I want to read something, Andy, to the listeners and the watchers. This is from your Tuesday this week, your Instagram.
Okay.
Happy Tuesday, day 3 of recovery mode, and finally got some quality sleep last night. Amazing how much better the world looks when you're not running on empty. Soreness is still going strong, and honestly, I'm savoring every ache. This is my body's way of saying, remember when we climbed that mountain? It's beautiful proof that hard things happened. I'll actually miss these reminders when they fade. Feet are still looking like I went 10 rounds with a pile of rocks, bruised and swollen, but wearing their battle scars proudly. Throwing every recovery tool I own at this body. Ice plunge, sauna, red light, massage, extra calories, more sleep. Less than 3 weeks until Leadville 100, which means I need to recover fast so I can get back to the business of breaking myself down again. It's going to be a brutal month of training, racing, and questionable life choices. I absolutely love this cycle of destruction and rebuilding. Bring on the beautiful suffering. Let's fucking go.
Yeah, that's every day I try to write a little like that's my like journaling, and like they tell you to like journal. I do a little journaling every morning when I wake up and I write it out and then I push it with like a picture of my watch that what time I woke up. So
How
it's
much of it then, Andy? I'm reading that, and I'm a massive basketball fan. So a long quote of Kobe Bryant came to my mind after he ruptured his Achilles, and he posted a Facebook post out from the hospital bed, and it kind of like changed tones throughout the message. It started with being like, "Why me? What the hell? This is bullshit," and then it ended with basically being like, "I'm going to come back fucking bigger, better than, stronger than you've ever seen anyone," and it's like it just shows his mindset as he's typing out this message. And it reminded me of that because when I read something like that, I understand the battle scars, I understand the feet and all that sort of stuff, the body, the soreness, but the mental stuff that you go through, the mental strength that you have during these races, can you share how much of it do you think is mental versus how much is the physical struggle?
I think it's mostly mental. I mean, you have to be in physical shape to actually do it. But the mind quits way before the body does, even if it's the body's not in that great a shape. Your mind will start to tell you things and you'll start to believe it because you're hearing it from your own mind. Your mind will start telling you to quit because you're in pain or you're tired or whatever it is. And you have to learn how to tell your mind to shut up and not to listen to it. Um, and it happens to me. It happens to me every race. And honestly, sometimes it wins. Sometimes I am like, you know what? it's not happening today. Um, and things happen that, you can't control that like injuries. And so like when I hurt myself in February, I was like 60 miles into a 100-mile race. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to go 40 more miles with this injured leg. And in hindsight, I'm glad I didn't because, it was really injured. So, I'm glad I gave myself a couple days off and rested and did all those things. But, in the moment, you still have that like, well, should I be listening to my mind right now? Or am I really injured? Or am I just telling myself I'm injured? I think, what I've learned, my mental trick that I've learned is when I'm really, really deep in the pain cave or whatever you want to call it, when I'm really suffering, when things are not going well. Like at this last race, I was maybe 60 miles in and I was going down a really steep mountain and I fell and landed on one of my poles and broke it. And so now I had one pole and like 50 miles to go or something, 45 miles to go, with some huge mountains to climb. And I only had one pole. And, you have that moment where you start like kind of being like self pity, like, oh, woe's me. Like I'm in this terrible situation. But then, like I kind of switched it in my brain and I was like, well, this is going to make a really good story when you finish this race with one pole. And yeah, you're going to go a little slower. And yeah, this is going to suck like a lot, but it's going to be a better story at the end. So, this is what you signed up for. This is like the hard part. This is, when you talk about doing hard things, Andy, it's not the first 50 miles where everything's going to plan. It's the last 50 miles where everything, doesn't go to plan when the train comes off the rails or whatever. um, this is the stuff that you can't fake. This is the stuff that there's no shortcut to get to. And I just remind myself that the hard parts are the best parts, even though they're they're painful and you're suffering and you're miserable. um, those are the parts you're going to think back on and be like, that was amazing. And you just have to like reframe it in your brain that like that's what's going to happen. And now I think back and I'm like, man, that was so hard, but like what a great story that I did, 50 miles with one pole. Um, and I did go slower, and that's just life. I still got it done.
Is there a trick that you have to decipher whether you should or shouldn't listen to what your brain's saying?
Not really. I mean, it's mostly just experience. I think, I'm used to my brain always wanting to quit when it gets hard. So but then again, like I was talking about, like your brain kind of goes quiet after a while. So the trick, I guess, is I just think to myself, like, well, it's going to shut up soon. Like, I know I'm almost to the point where it's going to shut up. So I just 5 more miles and this thing will shut up and then I won't have to listen to it anymore. And then, normally 5 more miles later, it's quiet and then everything's better.
And then, of course, smile.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, the brain gets tired too. The brain gets dehydrated and low on calories and all those things that your body is feeling. So, um, you just got to tire that thing out too, just like you got to tire your legs out because, you know, once it gets tired, then it stops throwing a fit, and it just is like, okay, now we just got to keep you alive, and that's a way better place for your brain to be during an ultra than, complaining the whole time about how miserable you are.
And how important for you, Andrew, is your I don't want to say catchphrase or motto, but you're saying smile or you're doing it wrong. I fucking love it. I absolutely
Yeah.
when I first came across it and I was like, oh my God, yes, why does that resonate so much? How important is that to you?
Well, I mean, it's like how I live my life, but positivity and just that mental shift. Like, I mean, even in these hard times, which are, you know, they're hard times, but it's a hard time that I'm putting myself through voluntarily, So, uh, you can always find something to smile about, even if it's like something basic, like, well, I'm not at work, I mean, it's like, yeah, I'm 80 miles into this race and I can't feel my legs and my feet hurt, but I mean, would you rather be there on the side of a mountain or would you rather be at work? Because I think most people would like sit at work wishing they were on the side of a mountain, or whatever it is that you're doing it. Plus, I think with the smile, you're doing it wrong. It's really about spreading positivity and like pushing it on to other people too, because when you smile at somebody else, they inherently will smile most of the time, unless they're really, really in a dark spot. And when they smile, then they get that little chemical reaction in their brain, and it might shift something. It might change something. It might help their race. They might then smile at somebody else, and then that helps them. And it's just kind of like that butterfly effect of like spreading that positivity throughout the world. But it really works well in races.
I'm sure anything to trick the mind.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, life is about tricking the mind. Life is about, it's not just ultras. It's like in general, it's about taking negatives and turning them into positives. It's about like looking at situations in different ways to not be so negative about it. Like there's got to be some little silver lining in most things. Um, Even in the darkest things, like there's got to be a silver lining. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's what I'm always looking for. I'm always like, well, this sucks, but let's think about it. Like, what is good about it? What can I take away from it? What can I learn from it? What can I use to make me a better person? And just keep moving forward.
Talk to us about your book coming up. Like what stage are we at? What can we expect to see in the book? And
Yeah,
talk us through about the process of having your own book. It's pretty cool.
yeah. So I mean, you're actually the first person on a podcast I've talked to about it. But yeah, I wrote a book this year. It is in the editing phase. So I wrote 93,000 words, which is like 400 and something
Damn.
pages. And I need to get it down to like 300 and something pages. So they have to cut like 20,000 words out. So it's going to take hopefully like about 5 weeks in editing. And then once that happens, then I'll like record an audible and we'll start pre-sale and all that sort of stuff. But I hope I'll get it out this year, maybe about Christmas time or something like that. And it's the story of my life from being a really messed up little kid, to being where I'm at now in life and the life lessons that I've learned, but also like all the terrible decisions I've made. Because I think whoever reads it will probably relate with something, like it's not like I was messed up and then I stopped being messed up and then my life was perfect. It was like I messed up and then I got better and then I messed up again and then I got better and then I messed up again and I just made mistakes my whole life. Um, and just have always just tried to bounce back from them. And I think that's what life is like making mistakes, doing stupid stuff and learning from it and then just trying to get better. And that's literally been my pretty much my entire life. So uh, I hope it, resonates with people, inspires people, hopefully gets people out of their ruts if they read it and they're in a dark place, realizing like, wow, look at this guy. He was, addicted to drugs and now he's a battalion chief at a fire department and is running all these miles. Like, there's always hope if you're willing to make the changes.
I love it. So hopefully, the perfect Christmas present this year.
Yeah, yeah. Hopefully, we'll see. It's I'm not an author, and I'm not like, well, I guess I am now, but like writing a book is a huge learning curve as well. There's so much to this process that I had no idea about. Everyone thinks like, oh, you just write a book and then you just push it out, and you can do that. There's like really fast ways to do it, but if you want to write a book and do it like the correct way, where it could end up on like the New York Times bestseller or something like that. Like you can't just like rush it to market through like Amazon, and I'm trying to do it the like proper way, with all the bells and whistles that go along with writing a book.
Awesome. I can't wait for it to come out, and I'm sure that people will learn lots from the book. So on that, then, book is often a crowning jewel in someone's accomplishments or career. I'm sure you've got plenty more ahead of you. But how would you like to be remembered, Andy?
I mean, I hope that I'm just remembered as somebody that helped people get moving um, and then just like tried to spread positivity in this world. Like just, at the end of the day, all I'm really trying to do is just help people. So if I'm remembered as somebody that helped people, then I succeeded in life. Um, and I dedicated my life to doing that as a firefighter. And now like through social media, I've been able to reach, millions more people. And, I'm just going to keep doing that. So at the end of the day, I just want to help change the world in a better way. And in the little way that I can, which is, I know that I'm very small, but so is the world at times.
I love that, and never underestimate the impact that you have. Even myself, I made sure I ran this morning before talking to you because I was like, "There's no way I can talk to Andy on my podcast and not having ran in the morning before."
Right, right. Awesome. See, it works.
Little by little. As you
Yeah.
know, the podcast is called Abnormal. It's for normal people that want to do abnormal things. Now, I think everyone would agree what you're doing is incredibly abnormal. So you are perfectly positioned to give advice then. So if you had to give one piece of advice to anyone out there looking to do anything abnormal in their lives, what would it be?
I mean, the biggest thing is you just have to start, and just break your life up into small little goals and just build on it. So, like for me, like I wanted to get good at push-ups this year, and so I started just doing 50 push-ups a day. Um, and if you do that every day, you get really good at push-ups. And now I can do hundreds and hundreds of push-ups a day. Um, but it all started with just one day, one goal, just slowly, slowly building and building and building. And so I would just say, you just have to start and just turn whatever you're looking at doing into a series of small goals that build on each other to get to where you want to be. Um, yeah, you're going to have an overarching goal. I want to run an ultra. Okay. Do you run now? No. Okay. Well, let's start with running a mile, you know? run a mile, and then do it again, and do it again, and do it again, and then eventually run 2 miles, and then do it again, and again, and again. And yeah, it's going to take time, but that's all we have is time. So just keep building it, and you'll get where you need to be. But that would be my biggest advice is you gotta start small, and you just gotta build on top of it.
Amazing. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for coming on. Selfishly, it's been an absolute pleasure for me to get to talk to you and pick your brains on a few things. Reiterates to me that some people are built different and have different levels, but I'm sure everyone can get there as well if they have the right motivation, consistency, discipline, determination, and inspiration. So people like yourself pushing your messages out, it goes a long way. And I love your content. I love what you do. Love what you stand for. Positive messages. Smile, or you're doing it wrong. Massive believer in that, and that's all come from you. So thank you again for coming on to Abnormal. Good luck with the book. Let us know when it's at. Oh, well, you don't need to let us know. We'll be following along.
I will let you know. Trust me.
But thank you again, man. Really appreciate it. And good luck with the streak. Long may it continue.
All right. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Abnormal. If you enjoyed, please consider subscribing to the channel and give us a 5-star review in whatever podcast platform you are listening or watching on right now, as it goes a long way to help growing the show. Thank you, and see you in the next one.